Hello, my name is Olorotimi Osha. I did an earlier video and I discussed how someone, um, an illegal alien, that's what they're called, an illegal alien, um, falsely reported to the police that he was a victim of a violent crime, a victim of uh, a kidnapping and a violent crime. And how they may have done this in order to obtain a uh, non-immigrant visa benefit. So I didn't explain what a U visa was, so I'm going to do that now. By the way, everything I say here is for information purposes only. It's not legal advice. I'm not your attorney, and this is not this is in no way legal advice. So, what is a non-immigrant U visa? So, a U visa non-immigrant uh, immigration benefit is um, it's for victims of certain crimes committed in the United States, right? Or crimes that are prohibited by the United States. Now, it's by the way, so people who are eligible for a U visa, they have to be in the United States. They have to be, currently residing in the United States. Of course, they're non-immigrants, so they're non-U.S. citizens. They can be non-immigrants, uh, you know, so it provides an opportunity for them to regularize their status. But importantly, they're victims of a crime, um, very serious crime that causes them substantial physical or mental abuse, right? And there's certain qualifying crimes. It can be a sexual assault, it can be domestic violence, it could be kidnapping, it could be trafficking, it can be a physical assault, it could be a robbery. So a serious crime, certain qualifying crimes that causes them substantial physical or mental abuse. So that's one. So they're victims of crime, and then the other thing is they they are working with law enforcement. They have information. They do have presently have information of that crime, and so they're working with law enforcement, right, to prosecute, to investigate and prosecute that crime, or they are they're going to do so in the future, right? So that's very important. They're working with law enforcement, or they will be working with them in the future. So it's a crime that's reported. So it's not a fictitious crime. So that's very important. Um, so if somebody is has been a victim of that's a non-citizen who's been a victim of a serious crime, certain qualifying crimes that cause them substantial physical or mental abuse, and they have documented information of this crime and they're working with law enforcement, then they're eligible to file for the U visa. I think the form that's used is an I-918, and it has its supplemental forms, including the supplemental B or whatever. Again, this is not legal advice. I'm just uh, expatiating. I'm expanding on elaborating on what I'd said earlier about how someone falsely claimed to be the victim of a crime. The person who assaulted me, who attempted to kidnap me, with a Howard University professor, Jide Warere, how this was probably what they were angling for, right? Because I'd never spoken with this person and they falsified information. So they filed this uh, petition, the application through an I-918, and they also have a sworn affidavit that's including their personal statement of what happened, of the crime. Now, once all of this is done, I think they have to, with their signature, they do it within 6 months and all that of filing their I-918 application. They need that sworn uh, personal statement. Once that is done, um, the it, Department of Homeland Security will make what's called a bona fide determination, right? Um, a bona fide determination to see if the the applicant is eligible. So why it's called a bona fide determination also is because they do a background check, right? They do a background check to make sure the person's qualified for to receive that F1 visa. Sorry, a U visa, not an F1, a U visa. So they do a background check and they check if that person poses any form of national security or public safety risk or other concerns. So all of those must be eliminated. So if all of that's eliminated, then they're determined to, you know, then there's a bona fide determination, right? That there's a bona fide determination. Now, importantly, if they clear all of that, right? If they clear the bona fide determination by Department of Homeland Security, then they qualify to receive a U visa that it lasts for 4 years, and they receive um, an EAD, that's Employment Authorization Document, EAD, which allows them to work. They have to file for the work authorization, so it's not automatic that once they file the U visa that they automatically receive um, a work authorization. So they have to file an accompanying work authorization permission. So once they have that UFI visa, which lasts for 4 years, and then they'll have that work permit with it, an accompanying work permit, which they file with it. After 3 years of continuing in that U visa non-immigrant status, so it is a non-immigrant U visa status that gives them lawful residence, right? Lawful non-immigrant status in the U.S. They become eligible to file for a green card, otherwise called lawful permanent residency, right? LPR. That's called a green card. So after 3 years of being in the U visa status, which is a lawful non-immigrant status, once they have reached the 3 years, they're eligible to file for a green card. Once they get their green card, right, people know how that goes. After 5 years of being in the green card status, one becomes eligible to file for U.S. citizenship, right? So after 5 years, they can obtain their citizenship after having a green card for 5 years. So now people have been apprehensive about the ramping up of denaturalization cases, right? President Trump says he wants the Department of Justice to increase denaturalization cases by up to 100 to 200 cases per month, which is very high because historically, denaturalization cases have been, about average 11 per year. Very low considering over 800,000 people are naturalized every year, become naturalized U.S. citizens every year. So even at 2,400, right? That's what President Trump wants them to wrap it up to 2,400 cases a year. That's still a trickle, right? That's still a drop in a mighty ocean, not even in a bucket, right? Of the 818,000 or so people who become naturalized U.S. citizens every year, and we have about 26 million currently, American citizens that are naturalized currently in the United States. So, who are the sort of people who may become denaturalized? People who obtained their citizenship through the U visa. They lied, they lied in the beginning. They lied about being victims of a crime. so something wasn't caught, or the government missed the fact that this person was actually a criminal, like this Gurma Shumi guy. Imagine if, for instance, he filed a fabricated peace order claiming to be the victim of a crime, and he did it with Montgomery County Police, because Montgomery County Police were trying to cover up their abuse, right? Their deprivation of rights, the constitutional rights of violations, right? They instigated and cooperated in a swatting with the Howard University professor Jide Warere, who is also an elder at 4C Bible Church. So imagine if that Gurma Shumi got the U visa, right? If he got the U visa and he'd gone all the way and gotten a citizenship, and somehow the government decides to do its job, the Department of Justice, the FBI, law enforcement, they decide to do their jobs, and they go and investigate this Gurma Shumi guy, because the peace order is still out there, right? And even though this guy was charged, they haven't prosecuted him, locked him up in prison or whatever, or convicted him. And imagine if he's using these false documents and showing the peace order and everything, how he's been a victim of a crime, and it's passing through the system, the immigration system. Later on, a diligent law enforcement agent and a diligent FBI and Department of Justice official investigate and say, see, Gurma Shumi and Jide Warere, they fabricated this whole claim of Gurma Shumi being the victim of a kidnapping and assault, right? And then they prosecute him. Of course, that's a valid case for denaturalization. So those are the sort of people that can be denaturalized, right? I did an earlier video talking about the Archbishop of the Romanian diocese in Romanian Orthodox diocese in Michigan, in Detroit, Michigan, Archbishop Valerian I can't remember his last name. But anyway, Archbishop Valerian, he went by Valerian. So he had been a Nazi sympathizer, and he had been a member of an anti-Semitic group, Iron Guard, that was responsible for inciting violence and the murder of almost 300 Jews during the Second World War in 1941, January 20, 1941 to be specific. And somehow he had come into America using the Displaced Persons Act of 1948, which was for people who were victims of violence, right? Victims of persecution in Europe, for instance, like the Holocaust, where people were Holocaust prisoners. So the guy who was actually an ally and who was an ally friend of the Nazis, lied that he was actually a prisoner in a Nazi concentration camp. So it took a long time, but the FBI, the Department of Justice, finally discovered that he had lied. He had already naturalized as a U.S. citizen, but he had lied, and he had obtained an immigration benefit by fabricating a story and his identity. So he was denaturalized. So if somebody falsifies information to obtain a U visa and ultimately becomes a U.S. citizen, of course, when the government decides to now do a more thorough investigation and they have information, then they can denaturalize such persons. Now, by the way, if the Department of Homeland Security doesn't make a bona fide determination right away, they can put the applicant on what's called on a waiting list, right? Which can last 5 years. So the U visa, a lot of people abuse it. I've actually met someone. Of course, there have been many women who've been victims of domestic violence. I knew a female who was a victim of domestic violence, and she obtained a U visa. She got her green card through a U visa through that process. And I've also met people. I know someone who told me his wife made false accusations of domestic violence. So there are many people who make these false claims, who made false accusations of domestic violence against him in order to obtain a U visa. So in order to obtain a U visa and a green card. So the U visa is for people who are victims of domestic violence, not just domestic violence, right? Certain qualifying crimes, include domestic violence, can be one of them, kidnapping, or you know, felony assault. It can be you know, armed robbery. So such crimes, sex trafficking, right? So such people are eligible for the U visa, and that U visa, if the Department of Homeland Security makes a bona fide determination on them, that is that they don't pose a national security risk, they don't have, they clear a criminal background check, and they are not a public safety threat, then they can get their green card. And that green card, of course, we know can lead to U.S. citizenship. But of course, they're dangerous. They're severe repercussions for those who commit fraud to obtain the U visa. My name is Olurotimi Osha. Again, this does not constitute legal advice. I'll keep you posted. Thank you.